We'll get started. This is the first meeting of the House Elections, Constitutional Amendments, and Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. We're going to call it to order, and Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Blanton.
Present.
Representative Cantrell. Representative Fisher.
Here in the room.
Representative Gooch.
Here in the room.
Representative Heverin.
Present in the room.
Representative Imes.
Present in the room.
Representative Cook.
Here in the room.
Representative Derek Lewis.
Present in the room.
Representative Scott Lewis.
Present in the room.
Representative Miller.
Here in the room.
Representative Moser. Representative Nemes.
Here in the room.
Representative Scott.
Present.
Representative Weber.
Present in the room.
Representative Wheatley.
Here in the room.
Representative Bratcher.
Here in the room. Okay, I'd like to remind the members that to turn on your microphones when you're speaking and turn them off when you're not speaking. Silence your cell phones. And does any member here have a special guest they'd like to recognize? I mean, I got Frank Friday back there. Go ahead, Jason.
A good friend from Oldham County's here. Blaine Anderson is sitting in the front row. Just want to recognize him. And
Thank you for being here, sir. All right. Representative Heverin.
I would like to introduce today Matt Deneen, who's in the audience. He was my middle school principal, and I'm glad to see him here today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here. Middle school. That's great. Okay, we will attack House Bill 2 first, sponsored by Representative Jerry Miller, an act relating to redistricting and declaring an emergency. Representative Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this getting this committee rolling for our busy week. It's been a week I've looked forward to for many months. First off, I'd like to call Committee Sub 3.
Okay. Motion made for House Committee Sub 3, and we have it, and it will be distributed, right?
Very good.
Now let's have has it been distributed? Okay. All right. Go ahead and do that, and
Shall I get started,
yes,
Mr. Chairman?
I want to make sure everybody has this.
All right.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Does everybody have one? All right. Motion made by Representative Miller. Is there a second to? Okay. The committee sub is in front of us now. All in favor? All opposed? Let's do a roll call. What this is, a yes means that committee substitute 3 will be before us, and a no means you don't want that. So,
Representative Blanton.
aye.
Representative Cantrell. No. Representative Fisher. Aye. Representative Gooch. Aye. Representative Heverin. Yes. Representative Imes.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Derek Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Scott Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Miller.
Yes.
Representative Moser.
Aye.
Representative Nemes.
Yes.
Representative Scott.
No.
Representative Weber.
Yes.
Representative Wheatley.
No.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes. The committee sub is before us. Representative Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The House Bill HB 2 is the result of months of discussions, work, and listening to stakeholders. I want to recognize the commitment of everyone to the redistricting process, to make sure it meets all our obligations to the people of this state, as well as to the LRC staff. I want to thank both partisan and nonpartisan that helped. I'm joined at the table by Tommy Druin to my left, who's going to be assisting me on the maps, and Representative Joe Fisher. As everyone in the room is aware, the Kentucky Constitution requires the legislature to redraw district boundaries to reflect population shifts since the last census. It's tedious, detailed work and requires a thorough understanding of often conflicting legal and constitutional considerations. Due to COVID, we started almost 6 months late than otherwise we would have started. One person, one vote. That is the rule. The Kentucky Constitution, Supreme Court requirements are that state legislative districts be, quote, as nearly equal to population as may be, close quote. The Supreme Court of Kentucky has interpreted this to mean a deviation of +5 or -5 from the ideal. Our plan divides the fewest number of counties because the Kentucky Constitution requires that state legislative districts be contiguous and preserve whole counties when possible. Because one person, one vote principle overrides the Kentucky Constitution requirement that we not split counties. Our Supreme Court has interpreted this to mean the state legislative districts, again, must divide the fewest number of counties possible, taking into account the ±5% deviation. In our map, every district is within the 5%, going from a low of 4.39 to a high of 4.8. Areas experiencing high growth are on the low side in order to meet the needs of a growing district. To understand why this is important, please consider that Representative Santoro and I each represent over 56,000 people versus the new average of 45,058 people, while we have 6 districts that have fewer than 40,000. Under this proposal, Hopkins, Henderson, and Barron counties would become single-county districts. We split 23 counties. That is the bare minimum possible. Every single district is entirely contiguous and as compact as practicable, given variables like topography and existing county precinct lines. For example, the 21st House District would no longer extend from the Tennessee line up to E-Town. 8th House District would not skirt the Christian County line, and the 81st District will better represent the needs of the people of Madison County. And the 49th District in Bullitt County will no longer look like an ink splatter. These two primary requirements of equal population and not splitting counties mostly shape the map, but leave some room to account for other priorities. Compactness. One consideration in drawing this map was compactness. We thought it necessary to correct some of the egregious string districts in the last map to decrease the area that the districts encompass and keep communities together. This proposal represents a committed effort to meet all legal considerations while trying to keep neighborhoods and communities together. In fact, using 2 recognized standards of measuring compactness, Jefferson County is 30% more compact in its districts. Another consideration was preserving integrity of political subdivisions such as counties and precinct lines. Previous maps submitted to the legislature have divided as many as 153 precincts. We divide none. What that does is there are some very large and very strange-looking precincts, but we preserve those lines. Continuity, another consideration was preserving the continuity of representation. That is allowing voters, where possible, the opportunity to choose to continue being represented by the representative they elected. Drafting this plan included several very difficult realizations, including the fact that districts would have to be combined. This plan places 4 pairs of incumbents together, including 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. For perspective, the map created by the League, that's actually 4 Democrats in 2 districts and 4 Republicans in 2 districts. For perspective, the map created by the League of Women Voters pitted at least 11 sets of incumbents against each other, including 3 incumbents in 1 district. the primary consideration was compactness, which ours was not. The districts in question include one in far western Kentucky, two in Louisville, and one in eastern Kentucky. Doing so addressed both population shifts and help preserve communities of interest. The Voting Rights Act. Kentucky must, like all states, abide by the Voting Rights Act. The act expressly prohibits discrimination based on race and color. We did not use race as a factor in drawing the map or any district, but we did analyze the result to ensure that it complies with the Voting Rights Act, and we believe it fully does. We create 4 heavily minority-influenced districts, District 40, 42, 43, and 44, and District 30 increased its minority influence, and District 77 maintained its minority influence. I am very happy with this map. I mean, it was a hard slog. I knew people would not be happy at both ends of the state and both ends of the political spectrum, but this is a legal map, one that will withstand scrutiny. And Mr. Chairman, I ask for any questions of the members.
Do we have any questions? Representative Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Miller, what's the difference between the committee sub and the original bill?
There were 2 precincts that were requested to be moved, and we accommodated those requests of the minority.
Okay. Have another. Yes.
And the map shown, of course, this isn't at a precinct level, but this map is of the original bill, not the sub. But I don't know that you could actually see it at this level.
Right. Will we have the committee sub maps? Will they be sent to us?
They will be, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. They're
All right.
just not there since we haven't adopted the maps yet. Right?
Okay. And I do have a question from someone in Jessamine County. They wanted to know, because there's so much dissatisfaction in their county with the maps, if there can be a change to the proposal for District 39 so that Jessamine still maintains its strong representation for the county. So I told them I would ask that question on their behalf because they weren't aware of what any kind of community engagement process was leading up to today, where they could have provided that feedback in person rather than in a committee meeting.
Right, and their representative expressed that feedback as well, most emphatically. When you do maps, you have to look at how they fit in the entirety of 100 districts, from Monkey's Eyebrow to the Elkhorn City area, and you can't just say, oh, I could have done this district or this county better. You have to look in the totality. There are 4 districts that come into Jessamine, 56 comes into the Wilmore area, and it just needed more population. So it's math that drove that. 55, similarly, it's math that drove it, rural areas along the Kentucky River. 45 is math plus we preserve the Harrodsburg corridor in District 45. And then Jessamine County has most all of the people of Jessamine, of Nicholasville, but does go up into the Fayette Mall area of Fayette.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. The second part of my question was, what was the community engagement process? Because I know no one I've spoken to in the West End of District 41 was aware that 41 would be taken out of the West End altogether. So what did it look like leading up to today to get community input and engagement in this process?
Well, since you've raised the issue of West Louisville districts, I think it's fair to say that 41 historically has been the most, it looked most like a string in Jefferson County. It was mathematically, according to the Polsby, Popper, and Rioch measurements, the least compact district in Jefferson County. So I want to make that point first. But who was consulted? I spoke twice with the head of the NAACP in person, and 3 times at least on the phone. So he was clearly aware of that.
So just one person.
Other than, yes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? Representative Wheatley.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative. This is a very long and tedious process. We are all aware of that, and it's inherently, partisan, and it is because things change, and there's two-party system in this state, and I don't like to speak in terms of this party or that party, but there is some concerns there, of course, when things change, and it can have the appearance of one thing when it might perhaps be purely numbers and switches and precincts and meeting the constitutional requirements. So you talked about some of the criteria that was used amongst the map drawers, and you have mentioned political subdivisions, and that typically is counties and cities, political subdivisions being important. My concern, and another thing I should share is, there are 100 districts. There are not 100 representatives on this committee, and all 100 of us would have lots of questions. I'm going to ask a few questions about my district, but they kind of pertain to a few others. So political subdivisions include cities, and the city that I primarily represent has been represented by a Covington-centric legislator for almost 200 years, and that changes with these maps. So that's Covington. Understand the same thing has happened in Hopkinsville. Similar things have happened with Bowling Green, Richmond. Can you just give a basic rationale for the amount of splits that happened in Covington and other cities in the same way, political subdivisions, that you emphasized several times how important it was that those considerations be there?
Thank you for that. And the primary consideration, of course, is counties, which we sought to preserve and did a good job in terms of total county splitting. To answer the question, you really have to say the Constitution dictates the math dictates the map. The map has to follow population shifts. Compactness is good, but it's not required. There's a lot of judgment calls, but at the end of the day, the map speaks for itself. If you look at certain districts in northern Kentucky, District 63 had looked like a horseshoe before. District 67 looked like a horseshoe. Those districts no longer look like horseshoes. I can't answer specific questions about your city, but I know two cities in my district in Jefferson County have been split. Jeffersontown, for example, which is one of the largest cities in this state that few realize, has been split 3 or 4 times traditionally. And so just because something has been in the past doesn't mean it happens in the future. Thank you.
If I can follow up with another question, thank you. And thank you for that. Saying that the maps and the populations and the law dictate things can be the answer really to every question. I was asking or looking for something more specific related to my district, but also
okay. Well, the south end of your county grew astronomically in population, and it's Covington population-wise is very spread out now. It's the people that used to live in Covington don't live in Covington; they live south of the city limits. So, in terms of a socioeconomic community of interest, it's different. So, it's a lot of judgment.
Well, and you're right about that. I could argue that very vehemently the other way. It's not changed. The annex that happened, that annexed South Covington, was in 1980, and that's why that part of that district has been in the 64th district for a long time. And that makes complete sense because that's a community of interest. The current map splits the communities of interest significantly. But that's really not my second question I was getting to. My second question was related to the heavily influenced minority districts. And there are 4 of those now. Were there any considerations about other influenced minority districts? In other words, not heavily influenced, but the influence that a 20% minority might have on as a coalition in other districts? Anywhere else around the state?
Again, there are 4 districts, 40, 42, 43, and 44, which are minority-majority districts. 30 is very heavily influenced. 77 is very heavily influenced. I think their population, I think it's right around 51, 52% minority in District 77, for example. When you get down to the very, very small numbers in 20% or 10%, less so. But again, you're talking minority population, so Voting Rights Act really doesn't cover that level.
Okay, and that does answer it. So there wasn't much consideration once it was below a certain number, and I know that all this matters how close we get to certain percentages. But there are coalitions that happen with, say, 30% black communities, included with a 15% Hispanic community, included with a 10% Asian community that voted as a coalition, that there could have been changes, and those are very much a part of the VRA consideration.
Representative Cantrell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. The first one I'll ask is about Fayette County. And, of course, you and I, Representative Miller from Louisville, so, I'm over here, sorry. I don't know how much you'll know about this, but my understanding from the past couple days is that the population of Fayette County grew overall, just as most urban centers did, but then the number of representatives who would be coming from Fayette County decreased. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, we actually have one more district wholly in Fayette County.
But in terms of the number of representatives who would represent part of Fayette County is decreased.
I don't. That's probably true because there were a lot of fingers that came into Fayette County. But I will say, you've raised an interesting point, which is counter to Representative Wheatley's point, which is sometimes having more representatives arguing your case is better. So thank you for bringing that point up.
The other thing I'll talk about is the area that I'm more familiar with, which is my area. I listened to what you said in prefacing, the entire map and your comments, and you talked about continuity of representation and preserving communities of interest. And I would say that's probably not true in my area. Obviously, I'm one of the ones who's gotten looped in with another incumbent, and I've counted 4 neighborhoods that are split: the Southside neighborhood, the Beachmont neighborhood, the Iroquois neighborhood, and the Kenwood Hill area. Beachmont was split previously. That's my neighborhood where I live, and it's split currently, but the others are not. So, am I just like an outlier these things just don't apply to my neighborhood, or is it something else?
Actually, you border District 40. You border heavily District 40. We had to move District 40 quite a bit to make sure that we maximize minority representation. It rippled out, and again, this map is 30% more compact for Jefferson County.
Yeah, 40's in
But
the
it was judgment call beyond that.
yeah 40's in the northern part. These areas are a little bit further south than where the line at the new 40 would be. That's not really a factor.
Any more questions, Representative Cantrell?
I don't think so. I mean, I was waiting for an answer.
Oh, was that a question? I'm
We
sorry.
were
I
still
thought it was
sort. I thought we were still going back and forth a
Okay,
little bit.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. And again, it's math dictates the map. It's got to move with the population shifts, but at some point in time, there is a judgment call. And the map speaks for itself as to compactness. Thank you.
Representative Nemes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you, Chairman Miller, for doing this work. And I want to thank you on behalf of Louisville for the work. Communities of interest were put in shambles 10 years ago in Louisville. In other places in the state, I want to talk about my friend Representative Cantrell's district and those around there. Look at the map from 2010. It's as dishonorable as it can be. The people from Valley Village were put with people from north of Shively. The people from Bullitt County line in Representative Cantrell's district were put with people north of Wyandotte. The people with Valley Station in Stone Street, their interests were just thrown to the wolves. Why? Because they vote Republican. They were put north to south, snaking across Jefferson County, because the Democrats wanted to make sure they had maximum representation. Even worse, the Democrat districts in Louisville were the smallest in the state. That is Representative Cantrell's district, as it exists today, that the Democrats drew in 2010. They didn't care about communities of interest. They didn't care about neighborhoods. You've got Indian Hills with the river, all the way down to the river, west of Shawnee. There's no respect for community of interest 10 years ago. It was about clinging to power. And because we don't have to cling to power because we have supermajorities, we didn't do that. We did right. If you look at each of these districts, let me address specifically my friend Mackenzie Cantrell's district. If you move her precinct back to the 38th, our maps become unconstitutional. The 38th becomes too big and the 35th becomes too small. This is math. And Southern Parkway, for those of my friends in South Louisville, I grew up in that district, is a dividing line. My friend Miss Cantrell lives on the other side of Southern Parkway, where most of the 38th lives on the other side, is on the other side of Southern Parkway. It's a natural dividing line. And again, if you flip it back, you have to make major changes or the district is unconstitutional. So all this stuff about preserving communities of interest, the war on Louisville was the war on the South End 10 years ago. It was an absolute war on the South End. And we've corrected that. Look at the map. All I would ask for the citizens to do is to simply look at the maps. And you'll see that they're much more compact. The math says they're much more compact. The national programs that we're asked to use are much more compact. So I'm going to get into the broad point real quickly, and that's the minute point. And I can do this for every single district in the state, every single one of them. Okay, let's go broad. There are 3 rules that we have to follow in the constitutional rules. Voting Rights Act. Voting Rights Act in Kentucky is not implicated because in 2017, the United States Supreme Court had an opinion that derived from North Carolina, and they said unless a 3-element test is met, you can't take race into account. The 3-element test is not met in Kentucky, so we did not draw maps based on race. We have the happy consequence of having 4 minority-majority districts and 6 for African-American majority districts and 6 minority-majority districts. That's a happy consequence of drawing these lines, but we did not draw them for race, as we're not allowed to do under the United States Supreme Court precedent from the 2017 case. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is you have to split the minimum amount of counties. In the House, that's 23. We've split 23 maps. In 2010, the Democrats didn't care about that. They split more. I represented the House of Representatives when I wasn't a representative. We took them to court, and the Supreme Court, and the only time I know of, I used to be the general counsel for the Kentucky Supreme Court. I've never known of this except for this one case. The Supreme Court ruled from the bench that the maps were unconstitutional because they split too many counties. We adhered to that constitutional principle from Fisher 1, Fisher 2, Fisher 3, Fisher 4, and Jensen. That's 5 Kentucky Supreme Court cases dealing with redistricting. We honored it to a T. We honored it so much that we have to put 4 majority members running against each other. Anybody that's ever done redistricting knows that is taboo. Speaker Osborne said, I don't care what taboos are. We're going to follow the law. We follow the law, and it hurt 4 of our members have to run against each other in the majority. That never happened with the Democrats. They just split counties willy-nilly, which is why in the 90s and in 2010, 2012, their maps were thrown out. We split the minimum majority counties. That's 23. That's rule number 2. Constitutional requirement number 2. Constitutional requirement number 3 is population. Ever since Reynolds versus Sims and the map case, Map versus Ohio from the United States Supreme Court, there's a one-man, one-vote requirement. For congressional districts, that is very strictly adhered to. For state and local districts, the United States Supreme Court has said you have a little bit more leave because we want to give you the authority to respect county districts, county lines, other political jurisdictional lines. So we'll allow you to go a little bit more. The Kentucky Supreme Court has said you can go more, but you can't go outside the minus 5% or plus 5%. So in the House, what that means is you take the total population of Kentucky, divide it by 100, and it gives you a number, and you can go down or up 5%. In the 90s and in 2010, the Democrats said not going to do that because they were trying to do what I've talked about before and many other things. So they were thrown out of court. We stay within the lines of up or down 5%. We don't get to 5%. I don't know the numbers. I think they're 4.8% or something is the most out of line, which is required to get to the minimum amount of county splits. So we have followed the Constitution to a T, even so far as hurting our own majority members. Okay, last thing I'll say is I want to ask you if there's anything that I've said, Mr. Chairman, that you disagree with, but I also want to say to my friends in South Louisville who contacted me for decades, even when I was a little boy, help is on the way. Help is on the way. You're finally going to be able to vote for a representative that lives in your area, and your vote will not be swamped by people who live 35 minutes away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we are going to, excuse me. I hear a motion on the sub. You mean the House Bill 2 as amended by the committee sub 3. So we will be voting now on the House Bill 2 as amended by PH 3. Secretary, call the roll.
Representative Blanton?
Aye.
Representative Cantrell? No. What was that?
No.
No. Representative Fisher?
Yes.
Representative Gooch? Yes. Representative Heverin?
Yes.
Representative Imes?
Yes.
Representative Cook?
Yes.
Representative Derek Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Scott Lewis?
Yes.
Representative Miller?
Yes.
Representative Moser?
Yes.
Representative Nemus?
Yes.
Representative Scott?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to explain my vote.
Yes.
I just want to say that my issue, in part, is that as often happens in this legislative body, the people that I represent were not included in this decision making. That is the problem that I have with this map. One person does not speak for literally tens of thousands in the west end of Louisville and in District 41. So for that reason, I'm voting no.
Representative Weber?
Yes.
Representative Wheatley?
I'll briefly explain. My no vote is related closely to my friend from Jefferson 33's comments. Community of interest and what was decried as so horrible that happened in Jefferson County happens in Bowling Green, Covington, Hopkinsville, Richmond, and several other cities, important cities in this state. And for that reason, I'm voting no.
Representative Bratcher?
Yes. Motion passes favorably. We lost the League of Women Voters online, but they do have a statement in your folder, and I hope everybody would read it, especially before you take the House floor vote. They can't hear us, right? They should be able to. Can you hear us? I don't think so.
Yes, now I can.
Do you want to speak on this bill?
Yes, I would appreciate that, Representative Bratcher, and I'm sorry, but we were not getting the sound
Okay.
earlier.
Well, I apologize. It's probably on our end too. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Dee Pregliasco, and I'm Vice President of the Kentucky League of Women Voters and also redistricting chair. This is our testimony this day, and we appreciate the opportunity to testify. And I'm sorry there were sound glitches at the beginning that we could not testify before the vote. Obviously, these were maps that were released by House Speaker David Osborne last Thursday, and we were especially pleased to hear House leadership's stated concern for preserving or expanding opportunities for voters from minority groups to elect candidates of their choice. Though without the data or the principles used, it is difficult to fully understand this result. In our early review, many districts also seem more compact than the ones they would replace. It was also good to learn that key legislators are ready to support a delay in candidate filing deadlines so that the 2022 elections can be conducted in districts based upon the 2020 census data. We regret, however, we cannot support the proposed set of House districts for the following reasons. We seek districts drawn without attention to the impact on incumbent office holders in alignment with the position of the League of Women Voters of the United States. There's been some comment that, well, we changed things so that 11 legislators would have to run against each other. That again supports our position of not favoring incumbents. We feel that this proposed map, explicitly was designed to protect incumbents. From our 2017 redistricting study through all of our work over the last 4 years, we have consistently called for the interests of voters, not the interests of current officials, to be the basis for redistricting. Our friend and colleague, Representative Nemes, always throws out that, well, where were you before? And Representative Miller always says that everyone should have been watching, everybody should have been listening. Democrats and Republicans all over the country have not done well with redistricting. We advocate for maps that divide counties where needed, but without slicing the larger counties to ribbons. In the newly released House map, however, a number of major counties have been divided in quite destructive ways. Parts of Laurel County, for example, are included in 6 different proposed seats without any districts centered on London. Some claim that gives Laurel County more power in the legislature because it has more representatives. This belies reality. Instead of a unified London voice in the legislature, its population is represented by diverse adjoining districts that may have little in common with London. In our analysis so far, we have identified similar sharp divisions in Christian, Davis, Franklin, Hardin, Jessamine, Madison, Pike, and Pulaski counties. Those divisions appear to have been designed to ensure that incumbents, those currently holding office, could continue to do so. In our judgment, districts could have been drawn more constructively if voters rather than office holders had been the priority. We are struggling to understand the proposals for the state's very largest counties, Jefferson, Fayette, and Kenton. The release maps do not come with data on the population of the districts or with precinct or street boundaries that would let us analyze those elements. Again, it appears that the emphasis is on incumbents. A holiday weekend was not enough time to analyze districts of this complexity, and I might say that we've still continued to be doing this even through today. A wider public needs the time and the opportunity to analyze and comment on all the proposed districts. For example, a real understanding of district changes that affect Covington and Hopkinsville will require thought from people who live in those areas. But the current calendar that is being pushed through the House does not allow those residents to share full thoughts with legislators or with the League and other civic organizations. And this is the same issue we have with the Senate maps, where we've also submitted a statement. So we respectfully urge rapid release to the public of the data and the principles behind the proposed House map, shares in forms that allow careful consideration, quick action to reset the filing deadline, which I have heard that you all may be doing, a responsible timetable to establish new districts, giving Kentucky citizens the time to study them, identify concerns, and propose improvements. This process should take weeks, not hours, and include many participants, not just a few drafters behind closed doors. One final point we'd like to emphasize. At Thursday's press event, Representative Jerry Miller offered the view that the League's recommended maps, if enacted into law, would violate the Voting Rights Act. We reject that claim. We work zealously to propose maps that fulfill the full legal requirements for American legislative districts. The districts in our maps have total populations, as enumerated in the 2020 census, that comply with the one person, one vote requirements of the U.S. Constitution and the rulings of the United States Supreme Court and the Kentucky Supreme Court. The districts in our maps also provide opportunities for non-white voters to elect candidates of their choosing, and we analyze those districts of opportunity by looking at voting age population in line with multiple Voting Rights Act rulings based on the same kind of data. We are in continuing dialogue with Representative Miller about these issues and hope to arrive at a shared understanding in the very near future. As many of you know, the League of Women Voters of Kentucky is a nonpartisan organization, and it encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase the understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Since 2017, and again, yes, we all should have been paying attention much sooner, the League of Women Voters of Kentucky has studied redistricting, provided multiple public presentations. We even went to many of the meetings provided by the National Conference of State Legislators that both Representatives Nemes went to, Representative Bratcher, Representative Fisher, and Representative Miller. And we, in these public presentations, we have advocated for an advisory commission approach to redistricting. Yes, the Kentucky Constitution gives the legislature the power. We understand that, but that doesn't mean that the legislature cannot open up the process. We have published 3 versions of ways legislative seats could be districted, and we've conducted a statewide series of forums and online input opportunities to gather thoughts on our maps. As a nonpartisan body, the League takes action on issues, but does not support or oppose candidates or parties. We support diversity, equity, and inclusion in membership and programming, and you can learn more on our website. While we agree that this is hard work, we appreciate your hard work, but there needs to be time for public input and comment on these maps. Thank you, Representative Bratcher, for allowing us time and for our being able to submit our statement to this committee meeting. Thank you for making it part of the record.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next bill. Is Floor Leader Mr. Rudy here? Okay. This is House Bill 172. It's an act relating to elections and declaring an emergency. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Bratcher, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. Thank you, Chairman Miller, for the shout out to Monkey's Eyebrow during your presentation. I am the proud representative of the fine community of Monkey's Eyebrow. House Bill 172 that's before you simply moves the filing deadline in the name of redistricting back to where it would have been prior to the action of the 2019 General Assembly, which moved it. This moves it back to where it was, where all filing deadlines had been throughout recent history. And it just does it for 1 year, just this year, and it moves it to January 25th at 4 p.m. local time. Again, it would undo what we did in Senate Bill 60 of the 2019 regular session for just 1 year for the purpose of redistricting. That's all this bill does.
And this will be, Leader Rudy, this just this one time. It'll be January the 25th at 4 p.m. And even if, say, something happens to these redistricting bills, it will remain January 25th.
If this becomes law, unless the actions of the courts or further action from this General Assembly, it would stay 4 p.m. January 25th, yes.
Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. Representative Rudy, can you just explain why, so that, because there's people viewing at home,
Sure.
why we're doing this extension and why we're not severing the local races from the rest of the races and the repercussions of not doing so?
Well, there are certainly legal concerns about separating the two, but the fact of the matter is when I had this bill drafted, and I think this language is mirrored in the redistricting plans as well, so we want to be consistent. But the fact is, Senate Bill 60 moved it to the first Friday for everyone, so this bill moves it back for everyone for just this year. Just plain and simple, and that was the thought of it. There has been some ask and request about moving it just for counties and city, or just for us and not counties and cities, but upon legal counsel, they felt that that could be open to a court challenge, treating candidates differently.
Representative Wheatley.
Thank you, and thank you, Representative Bland, that you kind of asked the question I was going to get to, but I want to check to make sure that Monkey's Eyebrow is not split up in any way as part of the new district.
Monkey's Eyebrow rests comfortably above the monkey's eye
Okay, and thank you.
in Ballard County.
And there was just there was a mention, I believe, by the chair that this was obviously just for this election, just for the people who were affected by the 2019 changes. It automatically changes back to the early deadline, the Friday deadline, and that's all separate from whether anything happens with legal challenges with the maps. We're still going to change back to that Friday. So this is a clearly bifurcated legislation. I just want to be sure.
No, it's one page, 21 lines, and I think it's very clear, notwithstanding any other provision of the law effective for the 2022 primary and for no other election, the filing deadline for the candidates will be January 25th, 2021.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Do I hear a motion? Motion and a second. Do you get that? Nemus and Miller was second. Yeah. Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Blanton.
Explain my vote real quickly, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
I'm going to vote yes to move this on in the process, and also with the understanding, as I've had concerns from some local officials about not severing, but from my understanding and speaking with the legal experts, that if this were to be tried and thrown out, they could actually move the deadlines even farther than the 25th of January and include local as well as legislative elections. So I vote yes.
Representative Cantrell. No. Representative Fisher.
Yes.
Representative Gooch. Yes. Representative Heverin.
Yes, and I would like to explain.
Yes.
I want to echo Representative Blanton's comments as well. From the 18th District, I've heard several concerns of separating the county, the deadlines. But just because of legal concerns, I do want to move the bill forward. And so I appreciate the conversation from the 18th District.
Representative Imes.
I vote yes, and I want to explain. I have to go home to a county judge, so I appreciate Representative Blanton's words too. Thank you.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Representative Derek Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Scott Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Miller.
Yes.
Representative Moser.
Yes, I'd like to explain my vote.
Yes.
I just want to echo the comments about the severability of the filing deadlines. I too have heard from many people in my district, clerks and otherwise, about moving these deadlines. I do understand after conversations that it's for consistency of ballot access requirements, I guess, and so I do understand the need to create a consistent filing deadline, but I just want to acknowledge that we have had those conversations and we have tried to work on that issue.
Representative Nemes,
Yes, and I echo the comments that have been made by previous colleagues.
Representative Scott,
Mr. Chairman, I will reluctantly vote yes because we never should have changed the date in the first place. It should have remained the end of January, but I reluctantly vote yes.
Representative Weber,
Yes.
Representative Wheatley,
Yes, and I echo the comments also and reserve the right to change on the floor. Thank you.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes. Bill passes with favorable expression.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee.
Thank you. Next bill will be Representative Nemes, House Bill 179, Act relating to districts of the Supreme Court and declaring emergency. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Section 110.4 of the Kentucky Constitution gives the General Assembly the duties and the responsibility to reorganize the appellate courts from time to time when is necessary. It hasn't been done for a number of decades, and the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals are far out of whack. Just so everyone knows, I think this is nature, the nature of a lawyer that we know this, but many non-lawyers don't. We have 7 Supreme Court districts, and when we adopted our judicial article in 1976 and unified the court system, there are 2 Court of Appeals judges for every Supreme Court, in every Supreme Court district, and those districts are the exact same. So I said we haven't done this in decades. In 2012, the Kentucky Supreme Court actually submitted a plan to the General Assembly, which was enacted in House Bill 1. Later, it was thrown out, and because the legislative maps were thrown out, the Supreme Court map was thrown out again also. And when the legislature went back and redid the legislative maps, they, for some reason, didn't include the appellate court maps. And so they're very far out of whack. For example, the smallest district population-wise, and by the way, Section 110.4 of the Constitution requires no counties to be split and as close as population as possible. The smallest district is the 7th, that's the Mountain District, and it has 476,000 people in it. And the biggest district, if you don't include Louisville, and I'll say why we don't include Louisville in a second, is the Lexington District, and it has a number of counties around that, is 738,000. There's another area in northern Kentucky that has 722,000. And so you'll see that the one-man, one-vote principles are nowhere near in compliance, as Representative Wheatley's district has almost double the size of the district in the Far East. So one of the things that we want to do is to comply with the Constitution. The census numbers are back in, and while we're doing the legislative redistricting, it's time to also do the appellate districts. So what we have is a map that is very compact. I'll talk about the major changes, Mr. Chairman, and then maybe answer any questions. I want to say,
put it on the board while we got it.
If we can.
What is that we got up there? A baseball bat or something?
If we can put it on the board, that'd be great.
Oh, okay. Go. They're going to try to figure it out.
Okay. It's House Bill 179, and we'll get to that when it comes on the board. So I wanted to say that this will be effective in the November 2022 elections, just like the legislative maps. I supported pushing that back to 2024. Every judge in the state, with very minimal exceptions, are on the ballot in 2022. There are 3 justices that aren't, but 4 justices that are. That's a historical anachronism because our highest court used to be 4 judges and now it's 7. Well, that was 4, I don't know. But now it's 7. So we have 4 justices on the ballot, all Court of Appeals judges, and trial judges throughout the state will be on the ballot this next year. So it will go into effect November 2022. The thought is, we believe it's the maps as they exist today are unconstitutional. So if we don't make it effective in November 2022, effectively we're giving our imprimatur to an unconstitutional appellate court map for almost another decade, which the decision was we didn't want to do. So we'll be effective this coming year. Major changes on the counties. I'm going to talk about the most populous counties. We'll be happy to talk about any county in particular. Davis County will be going to the first district. Currently, the first district has 525,000 people in it. The sweet spot is about 625,000. So they needed to pick up some population. Davis County is the most reasonable place to pick up that population, as it has 103,312 people there, according to the most recent census. We did a couple other county shifts in the first and the second, because if you look at the map, it went under Warren County, it had a claw, and we wanted to make it as compact as possible, and so we fixed that. So Davis County is one. In the third district, which is the Southeast Mountain District, that area picks up Harlan County. It goes as far as Bell County, Representative Blanton, and it'll pick up Harlan County, and it picks up Boyle, Mercer, and Anderson County. And the reason for that is because the fifth is so big, that's the Fayette County-centric district, that it had to lose some population. So one of the counties that it lost was Anderson County, and the third district has picked that up. Also the seventh and the fifth, or seventh and the sixth district, Representative Wheatley, is the Northern Kentucky district. And so it had to lose a great deal of population, and the seventh had to pick up population. So it picked up population from the eastern side of Justice Keller's district. I wanted to note that there's been some thought that we were picking and choosing counties based on politics. I want to say that our map for Northern Kentucky is very similar to the map that the Supreme Court submitted to the General Assembly in 2012, where they also took the eastern Kentucky counties. They took 5 of them then. We take 9 of them now just because of population differences. And so that is the reason that those counties were chosen. You can't choose the western side because that's Oldham County and Shelby County, and they're too big for the 5th to take, and obviously Louisville can't take that. I said I was going to talk about Louisville. Let me address that real quickly. Because no counties can be split in the appellate maps, and one man, one vote principles don't apply as tightly to the judicial maps as they do to legislative maps, we can't split Jefferson County. From my perspective, I would love to do that because it would give my constituents of Jefferson County more authority. We'd have a full seat and then some of another. So it's against my self-interest and the interest of Jefferson County that we have to stay whole. I wish it weren't like that, but it is. And so you put Jefferson County to the side and you take the remaining 6 districts and make them as close in population as you can. So that's the broad strokes. Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any particular questions.
Can we not get this thing on the screen, please?
Which one is it associated? It's 179. Yeah. Right there. Yes, sir. Okay, I think it's coming up right now. I do need to note there will be a floor amendment. Judge Jeff Taylor, who has been in the 2nd District for a long time. He lives in Ohio County. Judge Taylor, anybody who has practiced before the Court of Appeals knows that he's one of the best judges that we have. He's a tremendous judge. He's been on the Court of Appeals for 19 years. Under the plan that we devised, he is, like I said, he's been on for 19 years. He's the only judge that would have been affected in this way. Every other Supreme Court justice or Court of Appeals judge stayed in their area. He would have been moved from the 2nd to the 1st. He lived in Davis County for a long time. I understand because of Representative Scott Lewis came to me this morning that he lives in Ohio County. And so with a little bit of tinkering with his permission, at his request, and we've got an agreement with the Senate on this as well because these maps were agreed with the Senate. We have made 3 counties that are changed, and I want to make those highlights. It doesn't get the population out of whack, and it still maintains the very compact nature of the plan. Hancock County, as you see in here, and Ohio County are in the far east side of the 1st District. Those will be going to the 2nd District. And in return, and just to show your population, Hancock County is 9,000, Ohio County is 23,000, and in return, Logan County, which is in the far west, southwestern side of the 2nd District, will be going to the 1st to make that change there. We've talked with the representative from that area, Jason Petrie, and others, and he thought it important that circuit remain intact. And so we have an agreement to do that, and that will be a floor amendment tomorrow. Other than that, Mr. Chairman?
Once again, there's no constitutional requirement that these districts be equal in population, right?
So the Kentucky Constitution says that you can't split any county, and then once you adhere to that, you have to look to the population numbers and try to make them as close as you can. And this is something that Chief Justice Minton sat at this table and said to the judiciary this past year. They don't apply in the same way they do for legislators, and the reason for that is we represent people, right? I represent the 45,000 and change people that are in my district. As it exists today, it's well over 50,000, but we're correcting that problem. But a judge doesn't represent people. A judge is elected from groups in Kentucky and many other states, but they adhere to the law. They don't say, all right, I'm going to decide this case because I represent mountain folk or I represent Louisville folk. They follow the law. And so, as Chief Justice Minton said while he sat in this exact chair, one man, one vote principles are important and they need to be looked to, but they're not all controlling. And when I asked him, because I wanted to make Jefferson County more powerful and say, look, I think the people in Jefferson County are entitled to be just as big and no bigger or no smaller than other districts. He said, you cannot split counties. I said, what would you do? In speaking to my constituents, he said, you cannot split counties. And so to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, one man, one vote principles are important, but they're not as controlling as they are with legislative districts.
Okay. Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment. Thank you, Representative Nemus, for your work you've put into this. I just voiced concern for my 7th district. We're picking up a lot of new additional counties, and I understand you're trying to keep it based on population. I get all that. It really spreads our appellates out across the 7th district. And I wished we could have found something that could have compact that a little better.
Yeah. I want to say, Representative Blanton, that's something that you've mentioned a number of times to me, and I appreciate that. You're always fighting for the people, not only in your district, but all around eastern Kentucky. I would note that one of the changes that I made is as a result of talking to you and some others, and that is, in our original maps, it had Madison County in the 7th. And the reason for that is Madison County has a population of 93,000, and that would enable us to reduce the number of counties that are in Eastern Kentucky district, but it would destroy the culture of that district. Perhaps I think you would have another bluegrass justice and 2 Court of Appeals judges, whereas as I talked to some judges in Pikeville, for example, the heart of that district is the mountains. And while Madison, my mother's from Madison County, while Madison is in the foothills, it's not in the mountains. And you didn't want to shift the control of that district to Madison County. So we really wanted to make sure that Madison County stayed with Fayette County and didn't control either Debbie Lambert's district in the 3rd or Justice Connolly's district in the 7th. So we could have had fewer counties. The thought that we wanted to make sure that we maintained the culture of the mountains overcame the concern there, because it would have required, I think, us to have Madison County, which probably would have dominated one of those 2 districts, which is the reason we did that.
Thank you.
Representative Cantrell.
Thank you. Could you just go through each district 1 through 7 with the population totals, please?
Yes. So with the change, Representative Cantrell, of the Ohio County, Hancock County, and then the Logan County, the populations are, in the first, it's 623,000. I'm going to round up or down. 623,000. It's actually 622,860. So 623,000. In the second, it's 611,300. In the third, it's 610,000. In the fourth, that's Louisville, so it's going to be skewed here. It's 783,000. In the fifth, which is the Fayette County Centric District, 660,000. In the sixth, that is the Northern Kentucky District, it's 617,000. And in the seventh, which is the mountains, it's 601,000.
Did anybody sign up to speak against this? It seems like somebody sent me a message, but staff hasn't heard that. Is there anybody here that's speaking for or against? Okay. Do I hear a motion? Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Representative Blanton.
Explain my vote.
Yes.
I'm going to vote aye to move through the process with my concerns noted. Thank you.
Representative Cantrell.
No.
Representative Fisher,
Explain my vote.
Yep.
Out of an abundance of caution, I will abstain from voting on this motion under Rule 57 and any apparent conflict of interest rules under the Code of Judicial Conduct.
Representative Gooch,
Let me explain my vote, please.
Okay.
I'm going to vote aye on this. Jason, I thank you for all your hard work, but the amendment, it really helps me to be able to vote yes for this.
Representative Heverin,
Yes.
Representative Imes,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Representative Derek Lewis,
Yes.
Representative Scott Lewis,
Yes.
Representative Miller,
Yes.
Representative Moser,
Yes.
Representative Nemeth,
Yes, I need to say something real quickly. Okay, Mr. Chairman.
ahead.
I know a lot of judges are watching. I didn't say this, and I needed to. A judge just said, asked the question, texted me. The filing deadline will be the same as it is for everyone else in the state. It's moved back to, I think it's January 25th. So it's the same filing deadline as it is for legislators and county officials. That's the bill we just passed. Yes.
Representative Scott,
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pass since there's supposed to be an amendment on the bill. Thank you.
Okay.
Representative Weber, Representative Wheatley,
No.
Representative Bratcher.
Yes. Bill passes with favorable expression. I hear a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Yeah, I will. So went out to him on Monday.